one of the other things that got people talking was a potential fight between two boxers who weren't actually on the card but were there spectating. And that is the senator himself, Manny Pacquiao, who we haven't seen in the ring for quite some time, and Conor Benn, who we have seen, but not in a UK ring for quite some time and for very different reasons, potentially, apparently in advanced negotiations to fight against each other. They did a little interview together with our Radio Raheem, which you can see on the channel. Josh, what do you make of it? And do you see that fight happening?
Surprised to hear it was made in advanced negotiations, because prior to sort of seeing those two ringside, we hadn't really seen anything around that. I think it had probably been mentioned briefly following Conor Benn's last fight, the win over Peter Dobson, but certainly not with any seriousness. How do I view the fight? Not something I'm particularly interested in seeing Manny Pacquiao come out of retirement, if he is indeed in retirement. He's had one fight in 5 years. How much has he got left? How much training has he been doing outside of all the other commitments he has? He's got his political interests, and he's obviously a big figure out in the Philippines. So is boxing his main focus? I'd be surprised if it was. It obviously is for Conor Benn, who's looking to continue his comeback and get closer to a world title. So it does a lot of good for Conor Benn. He would have Manny Pacquiao on his record, albeit a Manny Pacquiao has only fought once in 5 years and is in his mid-40s. And I think we've seen a similar storyline with former opponents of Conor Benn, people towards the back end of their careers, whether it be a Van Heerden or a Chris Algieri, I think Samuel Vargas as well, you could probably throw into that mix. So I think you look at the names that have been targeted for Ben before, and it's probably goes into a similar category, maybe even more of an extreme category. And I'd like to see him fight somebody who's in his prime or near enough, and would be able to sort of offer a bit more jeopardy. So not something I'm particularly interested in seeing. I am surprised actually that it's something that Pacquiao is interested in being involved in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the benefit is from Pacquiao's point of view. Maybe they're offering him massive money. Maybe Eddie Hearn is. Maybe it helps with his political career. The higher his profile is worldwide. I'm not sure. It's obvious the benefits from Ben's side. You get a living legend, one of the best fighters ever in the sport, and certainly of his generation. Very much on the back end of his career. I imagine Ben would probably start as the favourite with the bookmakers, I guess, because of being, in his prime. And Pacquiao's been not just way past his prime, but also inactive in recent times. But yeah, it's not a fight that particularly appeals to me. I'd like to see Ben fight some of the best fighters at his natural weight, at welterweight. I know Pacquiao most recently has been at welterweight. But I'd like to see him against, Keith Thurman or a Boots Ennis or someone of that, even Errol Spence perhaps, or Mario Barrios. There's a few options there, but I suppose none of them have got the stardust that Manny Pacquiao brings, and he is a living legend, and getting the name of Manny Pacquiao on your record, albeit a faded version, it won't say that on your record. I can understand the interest, and I wonder where the fight would be. Would it be out in Saudi? I guess it probably would. More so because Ben, we haven't heard the result of Ben's hearing yet. The appeal from the board and UCAD against Ben's suspension being lifted about fighting in the UK. So I'd imagine that would be out in Saudi Arabia. So it's an intriguing fight. It's a weird, random one that's just seemingly come out of nowhere. I wonder if they just bumped into each other in Riyadh and talks began there, although it says they're in advanced talks. Maybe they got advanced very quickly. Fair play to them. See, I'm so shocked by the fight. It's caused a bit of a frog in my throat. I would back... I don't know. Would I back Ben to win? It's so hard to know what Pacquiao's got left because we haven't seen him in the ring for a while. If the Pacquiao that beat Keith Thurman turns up, then he'll give Ben all the trouble he can handle. But if it's a shop-worn, shot to pieces, not really training very hard Manny Pacquiao that shows up, then you'd have to back Benn. And I know that would stick in the craw of a lot of boxing fans to see Benn get a victory over any version of Manny Pacquiao. But let's just see what the chat's got to say about it. And while you're there, please do still vote in our poll if you haven't already. We're asking very simply, what should Anthony Joshua do next? Fight Filip Hrgović for the vacant IBF title, or wait to fight the winner of Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk? Let us know what you think. Right, let's have a look. Benn versus Pac-Man. This is DB Cooper 1. Benn versus Pac-Man is worse than Paul versus Tyson. That's Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, in case you haven't heard the news and, you know, you might need the smelling salts now. Hypocritical seeing Hearn slander Tyson fight, rightly so, and then announcing this 25-year-old versus 45-year-old. Benn is a real pro, Jake isn't. Yeah, but Tyson's a lot older, isn't he, than Manny Pacquiao, and a lot further removed from his prime as a fighter. So I can understand. I wouldn't put them in the same category. And Benn is a professional fighter, whereas Jake Paul, I mean, he is, but he's a novice pro, isn't he? Whereas Benn's on the fringe of world title contention. Where else? DB Cooper 1. There's like 1 million Filipinos in Saudi Arabia, by the way, so it makes sense for Manny. Biggest money in front of his people, and it oddly sells in Saudi. Yeah, I suppose Saudi is kind of the crossover capital now, isn't it? So you can understand why. And yeah, I didn't know the Filipino population in Saudi was that big. But yeah, I guess now you say that, it does make sense. Ray, alluding to our earlier subject, says, I do not think the Hrgović fight will work until the first Fury versus Usyk is over. AJ cannot wait for IBF to make a decision. I don't think IBF have got a decision to make. I think their rules are pretty clear. I think as soon as the first bell rings in that fight, they'll take the title away or he'll vacate it. But having said that, surely, you know, Matchroom can find out what the IBF are going to decide. How hard can that be if you know the right people? Mucky says Benn versus Pac-Man is the same as Paul versus Tyson. I mean, I disagree, but, you know, I understand what you're saying. Wizard Sleeve, the Ngannou loving is well and truly over. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. A National Acrobat says Joshua should give Ruiz Jr. the rubber match, unfinished business there. Yeah, but has Ruiz done anything to really earn a big fight at this stage of his career, whereas AJ's got back on the horse and he's been winning and so on? Ruiz has been very inactive. Simon Brandy, Fury won't fight AJ regardless of the outcome of the Usyk fight. He won't risk becoming a meme. Ooh, that sounds like fighting talk, and he is a real fighting man. Gypsy Boy says, who cares about AJ? Fury will beat Usyk and be the best of this generation, number one. Anderson De Silva says, when is Big John Fury fighting? Yeah, it's a weird one. I really wanted someone to get his take. Obviously, we didn't speak to him out in Riyadh, but it would have been good to get his take on Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, considering he's opposed Jake Paul in the corner of Tommy Fury, and he's always apparently wanted to fight Mike Tyson, especially given John was a heavyweight himself, obviously nowhere near the accomplishments of a Mike Tyson, and also named his son after the former youngest ever world heavyweight champion, or still the youngest ever world heavyweight champion. Anderson De Silva also says, I believe AJ will beat Fury now. Lutunaga Logavatu says, Fury ain't lost to the same guy twice, though. He hasn't lost to anyone, has he? You know, a lot will argue he should have lost to John McDermott early in his career. But yeah, contentious decisions aside, he hasn't lost to anyone as a pro. So, DB Cooper 1, I wonder how many more sons John Fury has we've never heard of. More kids than the factory that made my pair of Nike's Air Force Ones. Well, at least you're pretty au fait with slave labour, DB Cooper 1. Gypsy Boy, no way AJ beats Fury, yous are mad. Well, I think everyone's kind of fans of particular fighters, aren't they? So I'm not sure who's right and who's wrong on that one. Hopefully we get to see them actually fight and find out. Really appreciate you all tuning in. Before we do our closing remarks, let's get the result up of the poll. We asked you a very simple question, binary choice. And what should Anthony Joshua do next? Should he fight Filip Hrgović for the vacant IBF title? We assume it will be vacant by then. Or should he wait for the Fury versus Usyk winner? And we've got 59% say he should fight Hrgović, and only 40%, I say only, I mean it's pretty close, say wait for the Fury versus Usyk winner. Whatever happens to the other 1%, we do not know.